Thank everybody. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of the Masterton District Council. Do we have any conflicts of interest? No conflict of interest. We have apologies from Councillor Tuta, from Iwi Rep Robin, and I know Joe, you're going early.
Yes.
Thank you. Page 6, we have confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting held on November 13, 2024. Somebody move. Moved Councillor Holmes, seconded Councillor Johnson. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion that they're a true and correct record. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Page 16, the annual report 2023-24. David. Harris.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to be able to present the Council's annual report to the 30th of June 2024. It's now completed and asking you to adopt it. There's an adoption report there that gives some detail around variances for the year, but the major detail is in the report itself. And the report, it has an unqualified audit opinion, and Auditor Karen Young is here today to speak to that. I don't think I need to talk anymore. I think you've seen the report in draft form in the Audit and Risk Committee, so I'm happy to take questions, and then we can bring Karen in.
Any questions for David? No questions for David. Karen, I'll invite you to come up and say your piece. Nice to see you again, Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship.
And we'll just let you take over.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm very pleased to say we've completed the audit of the annual report and issued unmodified audit opinion on the financial statements and performance information. And unmodified audit opinion means that we're satisfied that accounts, we are satisfied that performance information and financial information is fairly reflected in the annual report. I'd probably like to say too that we've received a really good quality annual audit. The supporting information was also very good, and we had excellent cooperation and assistance from the council. Very good communication, and that meant that we were able to complete the audit within the time frame agreed with council. So thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Karen?
I'll just wait for the management report.
Yes, we'll be completing a management report on our findings and also any recommendations, and we have followed up prior year recommendations also.
And is that in a week or two?
Yes, yes. With Christmas being a couple of weeks, I can say before Christmas. You have my word. Thank you.
Any further questions? Do you got anything else to say, Dan? Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to make the point that we are adopting the report later than the statutory deadline, which is the 31st of October, and the reasons for that are many and varied, but it is a large document in a lot of detail, and we have a number of other things on, including local waters done well, and the resources to complete it fully and get the audit done. We couldn't do it in the time frame, and missing the statutory deadline isn't ideal, but it isn't the end of the world. And I want to thank my staff and Karen's staff in particular, who have done a huge amount of work to get the annual report completed, the asset valuation information and capital expenditure reconciliations of all the asset work that we do, and the financial standards, meeting the reporting requirements of financial standards, and delivering a document to the auditors for them to do their work on each year. So I want to put it on record that I'm thanking our team.
Councillor Goodwin?
Just two things that I know have been talked about was the roading, the fact that we didn't get as much funding as we did, as we asked for. I'm not sure if that affected this annual report. I don't think it did. Okay. The asset revaluations, was that a problem in the report? And that I seem to recall not long before the LTP, not that long before, they came in at considerably higher values, and it maybe challenged some of our responses to those assets. Was that a problem?
So, in accordance with Council's policy, the Council completed a full revaluation of land and buildings this year. We didn't find any issues with the revaluation. That uplift has been reflected in the annual report.
I thought it was especially the water assets that was the...
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. Council performed a fair value assessment of its infrastructural assets, which included roading assets and 3 water assets. A fair value assessment is completed between full revaluations. The result of that fair value assessment is demonstrated that the assets reflect their fair value, and it was not necessary to complete a full revaluation at this year end. That will be looked again for next year.
So that will be next year's annual report.
Next year is next year's also an off revaluation year. The council will make that fair value assessment again. So a fair value assessment determines whether there is any indications that the asset values have moved by a material amount. If there are indications that they have moved by a material amount, then a full revaluation is required, so the assets continue to be recorded at fair value.
My understanding was that, especially just in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been quite a high revaluation of the value of those assets, which affects our depreciation, etc.
Yes.
So, does your office assess whether that fair value is fair or not?
So we review and audit that fair value assessment. Because Council only completed a full revaluation in 2022-23, it's only 12 months on, and during that 12 months there was no significant uplift, and that's what we expected as well. So next year may be different because it will be 2 years on since you completed your full revaluation. So the fair value assessment was completed by management. It was presented to us with the evidence, and we audited that assessment, but we also have a procedure whereby we form an expectation of what we expect to see. So we used our own information as well to, I guess, corroborate that result. But there's certainly less risk of a material movement when it's only 1 year since that full revaluation was done in 22-23, and there was a significant uplift last year. And depreciation expense has increased.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Karen, thank you so much. What I would like to move the recommendation on page 6. And while I'm doing that, I'd just like to pay testimony to our staff, particularly David and Karen and the other staff involved in this. I think it's a pretty amazing achievement in today's world, and Karen was telling us before in the discussion I had, there's a lot of councils that haven't got unqualified audit opinions this year. It's one of those things, and it's a real testimony to our staff that they've worked really hard to get this to the stage where it is now. There were a lot of challenging circumstances, a difficult environment to work in, and it is a real testimony to it, and credit to the staff. They've come up with an audit which is quite outstanding. And when we were talking before, and Karen probably won't, I hope you don't mind me saying this, with another one of your staff members who was working very closely with our staff, he was absolutely glowing in the praise given to David and Karen and the team for the way they come up with this whole exercise. So it's a real, from my point of view, it's merits. I'm just so delighted that we've managed to do what we've done. So I'm going to move the motion on page 6 that we receive and confirm that we pass this and seconded by Councillor Johnson. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Lennox.
Will you stand in this meeting?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Karen and your team. And also kudos to the council team here and staff on the report. A couple of things I just noted that I'd like to mention, if that's okay. Page 45, the stormwater complaints, a positive decrease. Not quite there, but as an achieved, but 62 less complaints over the year is a pleasing result given the amount of focus and work the team have done and discussions around this table in regards to improving like covert areas and other areas. So well done there. With our areas of basics, that we cover, road, water, the essentials I see where we didn't achieve our KPIs, I hope that we reflect on the whys and look forward to sort of how we plan to achieve those in the coming year. Something else I just wanted to note, not so positive, but I guess for me, just reading the amount of the dollar value and rate arrears, that concerns me a little bit going forward into the future. And also just, it was quoted and stated probably 3 or 4 times, maybe 3 times in the report, just around that challenging and economic environment with cost pressures that people are facing. So I think as much as there's a lot of good stuff has happened and there's lots of positivity and we've achieved some great results, I think it really is important to remember that there's still those challenges out there, and leading into the next year we need to be really mindful of those.
Thank you, Councillor. The next Councillor Bayer.
Just a few little comments. First of all, I'd like to thank David, his team, the auditor, for all their work they've done in getting this prepared. I understand there's been considerable pressure on time frames and that, so I think in the end it's a job well done. Just a couple of things that I would like to highlight. 4.3 kilometres of sewer mains replaced or renewed. I think that's a good effort in this time. Surprising to see 700 kilos of batteries recycled. And 2 other things, just what Councillor Goodman's doing. Roading costs, these are going to be challenges very much in the future, something we need to be aware of. And the other one was good to see a comment around parking, about how we're going to be looking at mobility parking provisions and potential options for seniors. So all in all, I thought it was a great
Thank you, Councillor. Any further? No further comments. So if you look at the recommendations on page 16, there are 4 of them there. They've been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We now move on to the page 20, which is notice of motion for the revocation of the resolution passed on November 13, 2024. Before we get into that, I need to have a mover and seconder that we receive the supplementary report from the Chief Executive on this. Somebody prepared to move David, seconded Councillor Bayer. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. I've just got to go back to the apologies. I didn't get a second move or second for the apology? Somebody prepared to move those? Move Councillor Bowyer, seconded Councillor Lena. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, we now go to the revocation, and I will ask Councillor Johnson, who is moving this, to move and speak to this motion.
Thank you, Gary. The motion is that Council 1 notes the notice of motion provided to the Chief Executive, 2 refers the proposal to the Chief Executive for consideration and report as the proposal is likely to be a significant decision, 3 agrees to revoke Resolution 24/116 from the Council meeting held on 13th of November 2024, that Council notes that by not exiting the Wellington regional model, this model will continue to be developed for consultation with the community. And 4 agrees not to continue to develop the Wellington Region Water Services Delivery Joint Arrangement for consultation with the community and exits these joint arrangements. So that's the motion before you today, and here's my rationale. Further to the Council decision 2 weeks ago to consult on the Wellington Regional Water Model, new information has come to light. This includes significant additional costs to the ratepayers, additional work and resources required, and a change in the intended model structure. The Wellington Regional Model was based originally on 10 territorial authorities participating. 10 authorities have now reduced to 6, with Masterton, South Wairarapa, Horowhenua and Kapiti all exiting the Wellington model. This leaves 6 territorial authorities, of which Masterton is the smallest at a population of 30,000, versus a combined population of more than 600,000 with the other 5. Masterton would be geographically isolated from its partners, water services, expertise and resources. The question is, how would our voice be heard and how would our needs be prioritised? We also know that our iwi voice would not be represented by the Wellington model, as there would not be a seat available for both iwi, further diluting the voice of our region. It's also come to light that by continuing to consultation with the Wellington model, there will be significant additional costs to Masterton ratepayers of up to $200,000. Money down the drain, no pun intended, that cannot be recouped or passed on to the new entity. The majority of our councillors 2 weeks ago, 7 out of 9 of them, voiced that they did not support the Wellington model at the last meeting. It is disingenuous to spend money on a model that the majority of councillors don't believe in or support. By continuing down this path, it is not only Masterton who will face additional ratepayer costs, but all the other councils involved, as they will need to do 2 work streams, one with Masterton and one without. There is no valid reason to proceed to consultation for the Wellington regional model. Continuing to consultation with the Wellington regional model is a waste of ratepayers' money, time and resources. Plus, it won't give us a strong voice on water decisions in the future. It's time to exit the Wellington model and consult on models that stand up to scrutiny and provide a sustainable local way forward for the water services of Masterton.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Bowyer, I believe you're seconded.
Thank you, Bex. So just want to reiterate some of the points that Bex brought up and a few of my own here, okay? So since our last meeting, we've seen 3 more councils exit from the Wellington Regional Water Service Delivery Plan. We've now had 4 councils in total exit from the regional plan. This means approximately 25% of the connections that the regional plan relied on for funding are now gone. Kapiti District Council alone estimate the cost of staying with the regional plan to be almost $5,000 per connection. We also learned during the week that Wellington City Council has only allocated enough money to fix less than 1 kilometre of pipes this financial year. It has also been pointed out that even if the councils in Wellington open up the checkbooks, it would be 11 years until pipes would be back to the state they currently are in. Runaway network failure of Wellington's water is, in my opinion, inevitable. If we joined the regional plan, we will be an island 80 kilometres away from the bigger, more powerful councils. We will be the fly on the backside of an elephant, and we will get swatted away with total disdain. Before the council meeting 2 weeks ago, I would have spoken to more than 100 people. Not one of them was interested in joining with Wellington. Not one of them said to me, wow, that Wellington Water Group, they do an amazing job. Wasn't Masterton District Council more like them? Before our meeting 2 weeks ago, I was extremely happy to have nothing to do with the Wellington Regional Water Plan. Today, I still believe exiting the Wellington Regional Plan is still the right thing to do. Masterton may have the ability to stand alone by itself, and this needs to be fully investigated. There is also a possibility of us joining a Y+T model. For that marriage to happen, a prenup, a statement of intent, will need to be negotiated to ensure Masterton is not paying overs for other councils' issues. However, we will need to be realistic about our own issues. That is, the upgrade of the Homebush plant in 10 years' time when its resource consent is due for renewal, which is expected to be a very expensive upgrade. We also have Castle Point, Riversdale, that will be due for consent renewals after that. I believe we need to look no further than Graham Dick's letter to the Wairarapa Times Age editor on the 22nd of November to find out what the public want of us, their elected members, to do about joining the Wellington Water Regional Plan. In the letter he states that consultation on the regional plan is a waste of time. Councillors need to stop wasting ratepayers' money and our time and get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Blighty. I'm now going to ask Kim to speak to your supplementary report. We need to move the first points 1 and 2 of the motion, 1 being that we note the note of the motion provided to the Chief Executive, and 2, we refer the proposal to the Chief Executive for consideration and report as the proposal is likely to be a significant decision. So we have a move of that, move Councillor Johnson, second Councillor Holmes. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll, Your Worship, I'll have Karen to respond to this.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a point of process in terms of accepting this as part of this meeting in accordance with Standing Order 9.12. So, because this was a late item on the agenda, so why was it a late item? And it was in response to the notice of motion, which meant that it couldn't be provided as part of the agenda, and it's being provided today. Why can't this be delayed until a future meeting? We thought that it was appropriate to have this information alongside the notice of motion so that you have all of that information to decide today. And as we know, we've talked previously around there's a lot of work that needs to happen from these decisions onwards in terms of consultation and modelling. So that was why it's appropriate for it to be considered at this meeting today. So just to go into the content of the report, as has been indicated, the notice of motion, the decision that's been required and requested of you today is a significant decision, and in which case, under standing orders, then the matter then has to be referred to the Chief Executive to report back, and that's generally so that the Chief Executive can say what the implications of making that decision are. We've noted in the report to the last meeting that the three waters, of course, are significant assets in terms of our significance and engagement policy, so therefore they are significant, and we know that changing water services will be a matter of high significance to the community, so therefore this decision, which is contained within the notice of motion, is a significant decision. There's nothing more for us to say there because you've had all of that information provided to you as part of the report to the previous meeting. In terms of the decision-making requirements within the standing orders, we have to, the Chief Executive has already determined that the information that was provided in the notice of motion does satisfy the requirements, decision-making requirements in the Local Government Act, so there's nothing further that you need in order to be able to make that decision. And officers' view of the information that was provided alongside all of the other information that was provided in that previous report is sufficient information for you to be able to make the decision that's requested in the notice of motion. I did want to note, though, as a matter of completeness, there has been some previous discussion at the last meeting around the content of the third bill. You'll recall that there was a motion that was put as to whether we should delay the decision making until after the content of the bill is made known. And I just wanted to clear that up because that motion failed. But I just wanted to clear up if there's any sort of concern around that we don't know the content of the bill. We do know the content of the bill. The policy content, even though we don't have the words of the bill themselves, the policy content has been signalled for some time by DIA. They attended at the workshop that we held that was open and available to the public. And basically the decisions that you're making around what models that we take forward, that's all contained within the bill. We just don't have the actual words describing what that looks like. But, and I've listed here some of the other provisions that will be as a part of that bill. So that's around that economic regulation. There's changes to the regulations and how the new water entities will be regulated and the environmental standards. So we have been aware of what that content is that's coming. And so the bill will necessarily reflect that because that's part of how the parliamentary process works. There's cabinet sign-off effectively to policy content, and then the bill writers go away and write the bill to reflect that policy content. So just wanted to clear that up before we continue with this notice of motion. So that's pretty much all that we have to report back. So we'll hand it back to the meeting.
Thank you, Karen. I'm going to ask Joe if you'd like to say something. Joe, I know you do have to leave.
Your Worship, for the opportunity for us to have and I do speak with Robin's blessing as well. We have given our views around the exit of Wellington. We gave it the last time that we stood in this room and still believe in it. We still believe that we will get a better deal by going it on our own as councils for the Wairarapa. I have experienced firsthand how we've been ignored at the Wellington table, and I don't want us to see that. I think that the crunch time is coming for this council to make that decision. The iwi stand by exiting Wellington, and we've already given our views around the model that we prefer as iwi because for everything that we've explained around our iwi boundaries, the fact that we can actually participate as two PSGEs supporting this council in the way forward. And Robin has also relayed to the council the way that they do it in Auckland around, use of pays and all of those things. If people find a way, they find a way. And so all really we have to say in closing what the iwi has to say is we wish you well. We wish that you make the very best decision for the people of this community, because at the end of the day, I've said it before and I'll keep on saying it, they put you here, they'll take you out. And water is going to be on your agenda every single year until we get it right. And I think that by making the decision to exit Wellington and take over, I suppose we call it your tino rangatiratanga of the water here alongside of iwi, will give you so much more abilities to manage a precious resource that will actually ensure that our region survives and thrives. And so from us, we just want to say we wish you well. We wish you make the best decision for this. We hope it's an exit of Wellington, and we hope when it finally comes down to the type of model that you choose as councillors, that it will be the Wairarapa Tararua model. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you for remaining. Right, open to discussion. Any further discussion? Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Since the meeting on November the 13th, I've since gone back to the options and analysed them as best to my ability, again in depth. I've spoken to peers, I've been to a public meeting, and I've spoken to various members of our community about the three models. I guess for me, the fact that similar smaller councils like Kapiti and Horowhenua have since pulled out are progressing forward with the Wellington regional model, it's telling me that they too have concerns, like members of us around the table here today. I don't believe we will have a strong enough representation for Masterton with the regional model. And the two other models, YT and Masterton Status Quo Enhanced, are worthy of consultation. They both hold their own pros and cons, but how we consult on these is the key. We need every bit of detail to share with our people, and that detail needs to be clear, easy to understand. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this has not been easy to understand. We need to use a combination of everyday language, less bureaucratic bloody speak, keep it simple. So all of our ratepayers, all of our community, those that pay rates through rent, they can engage with us on what is one of, if not the most important issue our region is currently facing. We did well with the response from the long-term plan consultation, so let's do even better with this local water done well. And let's listen to our people. And I'm supportive today of the two options to consult on, the Y+2 model and the enhanced.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion, Councillor Gould?
I'm astonished how many people are here talking about which model is the best, when we're meant to be discussing what models we put before the public. It's called a consultation process. And then, in June, we'll make a decision. I continually hear people who have already decided, and I just think that is, you talk about having a good consultation process, I think this is appalling.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further comment? Councillor Helena.
I haven't prepared anything, but I think we all agree this is an important issue. I don't support the revoking of the motion that was passed last week, but I do support the reasons for it. And if those reasons are genuine, that we need more information and we needed to delay a week to get that information, and I fully support those who put the motion. It's my view, though, we don't have enough information yet. And I guess one of my question, there will be some statements after this, but my question, and maybe a motion, is that we delay it for 2 weeks. It's an incredibly significant decision for our community, whatever gets decided here. And we're going to live with this decision for a long period of time. For me, the decision is around cost to the community. And none of these models are complete in terms of the information they're giving us around cost. Or just about every claim that's been made against the Wellington regional model, you could make that against the Y+10 model. So my request is that we, and you know, despite Officer Karen, what you said, that we do know a lot around the third bill, we don't know the details of what the bill is going to require councils to do in terms of specifics around water. So we don't know what the requirements are yet. And so, for example, the Wellington regional model has amped up asset management plans by 40 to 50%. The Y+10 model's amped it up by 26%, and we've been told that the cost of water services in the last 3 years has gone up by 28%. So there's this huge amount of unknowns, and I believe we need to wait until that third bill, we know the details of that third bill. I believe we need further information around the combos that might join the Y+T model. We need the DIA reports around the specifics of where those other councils are at in terms of the levels of investment they're going to need over the next 20, 30 years, the levels of debt. Some of that is known, but we need the DIA information on that before we can make a proper decision, in my view, a decision that's in the best interests of our community. We also don't have a full complement of elected members here, and I think what is 2 weeks? We delay this till the 18th until we know the details in the bill. We have hopefully all our elected members here, and we can have a more informed discussion. What we're trying to do today, a more informed discussion based on the information that the movers of this motion felt was needed. I believe we need more information than we've already received. So I guess my question, Mr. Mayor, is can we move that we delay this decision for 2 weeks? And if not, why not?
The only, under a notice of motion, the only way that we can do that is if the mover of the notice of motion is willing to take an amendment.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just finish off by saying then, again, last week we voted to share water services models, 3 models with our community. We don't have full information on those 3 models. We don't even have, in my view, clear information around which one is going to best serve our community. For me, it's all around price. I acknowledge, and one of the main reasons I would support the Y plus T model is because it works well for our iwi. But that aside, the most important thing is for our community and the cost they're going to have to pay for water. We're in 2 weeks' time, we're listening to the new regime on paying for our water usage. That's going to have a significant impact on our middle income and low income householders. This decision is going to, in some cases, on some of those low income and middle income householders, it's going to actually double their rates. Having a council rate and then a rate for water. It's going to have huge impact on our most vulnerable, and I think it's not too much to wait 2 weeks to get some more information so we're in a better decision to decide this. But in the very least, for me now, our community deserves to have 3 models presented to them, because I believe there's a huge amount of knowledge in our community and expertise that can give us information that we might not have come up with. So I totally oppose the motion and believe that we should be consulting on 3 models.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So was that are you asking for an amendment to the motion?
Well, if the movers of the motion have to allow it, I think, is that what I understood?
Yes, it can't be amended. Now it's been put and seconded. It can't actually be amended, but there could be some discussion and an agreement for if it failed, and then a new motion could be put, but it would need to be put.
So there can't, just to clarify, there can't be an amendment?
No, not understanding orders 27.4. Once moved and seconded, no amendments may be made to a notice of motion.
Okay, Councillor Nelson.
Like Councillor Helena, I didn't come prepared with a speech full of I wills and notes from people writing letters to the editor. But what I will say is that Councillor Johnson emailed the CE almost immediately after the vote on November the 13th, got a reply straight away, and then got a detailed response to each of those questions. I can't tell you how many times I have asked for information about the viability of the Y plus T model without Masterton. It was treated with disdain from you with your comment, with your reply, and I've never had a response. I don't know why. Well, that tells me that there's a reason why we're not getting that information. We haven't seen the DIA reports, and I acknowledge that they have to give them to us and provide them to us, but we haven't seen them. So we haven't got detailed information from the DIA on the other 3 councils, which I find appalling. Also, I don't go by what you said about this bill. I want to see the bill. I'll read it with detail, and I think what Councillor Helena has asked for, which is in line with my amendment from 2 weeks ago, is utterly reasonable. It's 2 weeks we're asking for to see it. perhaps to see those DIA reports. I don't understand what this huge rush is and how valuable 2 weeks apparently seems to be to the people who are pushing this forward. And I'm ashamed that we're not going to our community to ask them what they think. 7 out of 9, you said, don't support the Wellington regional model. I can't recall that. Maybe it was said in that last meeting, but I did hear 2 people with strong predetermination towards positions in regards to the Y+T model.
You and who?
2, so you and you, strong positions on supporting Y+T. You had written notes prepared. You shared that in your summary. Excuse me, let me finish. I'm talking. But I cannot believe that we're so not ready to let our community speak on this, and I think it's shameful.
Okay. I'd just like to have to say here, David, and then I'll let you say. I believe we are totally ready to make a decision now. We've had hundreds and hundreds of pages of reports before us, and it's become abundantly clear to me that consulting on the Wellington regional model is a waste of both time and money. You've got to remember, and I think it's worth repeating, that if we stay in with the Wellington regional model, they will have to come up with 2 mod links, and so will Wairarapa and Tararua, and we will be paying for both. We will be part of the payment for those. We also have to remember that we are now the only one of 5 smaller councils who are still part of the Wellington model going forward, and that we would be consulting on us working alongside Wellington City, Hutt City, Upper Hutt and Porirua, all of whom have water services problems which absolutely dwarf ours by comparison. Now I can say, and I'm quite happy to say in an open meeting, I have talked to mayors from down there who are aghast at the thought of just having to work amongst themselves to come to an agreement, let alone having little old Masterton sitting on the side trying to get its voice heard. And I think one of the mayors actually did get quoted in the paper saying that he would be very surprised if the 5 smaller councils didn't pull out of it. I accept that there might be a few who see consultation on Wellington as being a reasonable proposition, but I can say, and I'm a bit like Craig here, I've had over the last 2 weeks, I'd hate to think how many people have rung me, called me, emailed me, and I would say that 2% of those people have wanted to stay in Wellington. They're all saying, get out of Wellington. So I have, the thing that really makes me comfortable about this, that I believe that the people of Masterton, the wider community, actually want us to exit. And I also wonder when you know in your heart of hearts that a particular model will not win favour, either in the public arena or around the council table, why you wouldn't think that would be a waste of both time and money to go out and consult on it. It just befuddles my mind a bit. I think, a bit like Tom too, I think that the iwi situation needs to be considered. Iwi are going to play a very important part in setting up these entities, and it's been made very clear, as Joe said, to our iwi, that getting somebody from iwi on that Wellington regional model is going to be a really difficult task, because without putting words in their mouths because they're not here, the iwi from over the hill and the iwi here think differently about just about everything. And so if we think that if we get into the Wellington regional model that our iwi will get a proper voice, that's just not going to happen. The other thing I want to say at the end of all this, though, is that whilst we're voting to exit the Wellington model, and I personally hope we do, it doesn't mean that today we're giving the big tick to the Wairarapa plus Tararua model, as Stella commented. There's you can excuse the pun, but there's a lot to happen before that water goes under the bridge. In essence, what we're doing is we're going out to public consultation with the Wairarapa plus Tararua model alongside an enhanced status quo. And it could be that the people, once we flushed all this out, that the public and even us might say that the enhanced status quo is actually better than the Wairarapa Te-Arua model. It may happen. So the opportunity is going to be given the public to have their say on that. They may even tell us they don't like either. So the consultation is going to be there. There's still going to be an opportunity for the public to come into it. But from every way I look at this, and I'm, probably in the privileged position of me, you go to a lot of meetings, you talk to a lot of people, you go to mayoral forums, I can say honestly, I do not believe there is any value in the Wellington regional model and that we should exit it right now. David.
Thank you, Gary. I think from I stand here now and I think I've heard everything today, and I make no bones about it. The sooner we exit Wellington, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And I have, with Joe, experienced what it's like to be down there, to be in a minority. Kim's been there, he's seen it. And I do think that we, at this stage, we're big enough to look after ourselves with Wairarapa and make up our own decisions. And I have not spoken to anybody that wants to go with Wellington, other than some people around this table think we should be going with Wellington. The challenge now, looking forward, is to look at the models we've got here in the Wairarapa and think of the Wairarapa as the Wairarapa and move forward. A lot of the public think of Masterton as being very, very muddled, and I think we are. If we turn this opportunity to exit Wellington down today, we're going to look as though we're not even muddled. We're absolutely a pack of muddlers. So my thoughts are, I've had lunch with the iwi today. They're very much, and I've known this for a long time, the iwi over the next generation are going to be so active here in the Wairarapa, and they'll look after us if we look after them, and we've got to have confidence. I want to say too, I went to that ratepayers meeting at Lakeview the other night. It was a good turnout. There was over 40 people there. Very fair meeting. And I think the consensus from people I spoke to who actually came up to me after it, they didn't want to stay with Wellington. So the sooner we move forward, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gould.
The amazing thing is when I talk to people, whether at Lakeview meetings or out on the streets, is how little anybody knows about the details of what we're talking about. And it is a challenge for us to be on top of the information. And one of the complaints you hear, or are about to hear, is the lack of information and responses to requests for information. I happened to get, fell through the door, the South Wairarapa District Council DIA report. And, I've made 2 requests. You did respond to the first one, you haven't to the second, for you to request this information from these other councils. Because here's just a little gem. On a standalone basis...
Hang on, I think we
No,
should
I think you just, I provided you links for that information for you to be able to... I don't own their documentation.
No,
It's
I
the
asked
Department
you
of Internal
to
Affairs
ask
and each of the
Well, I think you should let Brett
councils
speak.
information. So you can't say that I didn't provide that. I gave you an explanation with links on how you can obtain that information.
You did.
And that's that I'm not your private secretary, councillor. Okay, so that's... There we go.
If I'm to make a decision on something that affects 10,000 people in this town to the tune of thousands of dollars each per year, and I ask you, as I did the second time, to request this information off those other councils, and as I said to you, if they refuse, it's just that you have more weight from me. I employ you to do that sort of thing.
And I gave you a response.
I think Brett's speaking.
Appropriate. So I'm sorry, I don't put up with that, and that's not acceptable.
Well, anyway, you didn't
I didn't
respond.
because I don't own that document. No. That information was available via Lagoima, via you. There's no chief executive is going to Lagoima, other councils for this information. So no, that's for you to do. That's for you to do. I'm sorry, that's for you to do.
Yeah, DI
It's not
has
for me
been
to do as chief
Lagoima,
executive. I'm not your private secretary.
And DIA has been Lagoina, and because of Christmas, they won't be responding until the 20th of January. But just so that you know that there is something in here, and I know none of you have seen this, apart from the copy I emailed out yesterday, I suppose. On a standalone basis, South Wairarapa would face significant challenges in financing the $145 million investment. If you read on page 29 of the W+T report, the investment needs which Maz and Co have put together, it's got South Wairarapa down at 177.94. This is for 10 years, increasing to 225. So the question immediately comes, do you understand, from someone like me, if they can't pay, if they're struggling with $145 million of liability in South Wairarapa, how are they going to cope with $225 million worth of liabilities in South Wairarapa? And Tararua is worse. And I suppose my question to you, there is a question here.
We've had questions, we're not actually having questions because now you've had the opportunity for questions. So, and again, you're cross-examining information that...
I just want to ask you a question. You made a statement that the W+T model, and I hate to talk about models because we should be talking about consultation, but here we go. You said the W+T model would be financially unsustainable in response
No, I
to...
did not say that.
Unless they harmonise the prices in 3 to 5 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that. What I said was very clear, is that harmonisation, there was through an email, which I think is very public,
yes.
And I think it's been shared with the media, it was very clear, is that we don't want to prevent, we want to ensure that the CCO is successful. Therefore, harmonisation for 3 to 5 years would be reasonable. There was nothing to say that it was not sustainable. Because you were suggesting at the time that harmonisation for 10 to 20 years. And so that's a discussion, not for today, that's a discussion through any negotiation that occurs moving forward. I did not say that it was not sustainable, as what you've just...
You said it may be unsustainable.
I did not use
without
that.
harmonisation.
All right, anyway, that's not the discussion today.
But anyway, the point is that there is much information out there that we haven't seen. And to me, what is the harm in delaying this for a couple of weeks or a bit longer and getting this information? Because the difference we're talking about is thousands of dollars per resident in this town per year. It's a staggering amount of money. And I haven't heard much rational debate about which model is better or which model is worse, but I do quote in the W+T report, your report if you like, on the bottom of page 5, that it acknowledges the regional model is cheaper if you just look at price. And
That was on a 10 model,
that is,
10 council model, correct?
do you know what the numbers are now?
No?
6.
But I would imagine there'll be more, because
You would
as you
imagine.
pointed out...
You would imagine. So should we make a vote on you imagine?
Gary, you should control your meeting. It's Craig speaking up when you shouldn't.
It's just these uncertainties, and I mean, we'll know where Tararua, nobody wants Tararua, we'll know what their decision is in a week or so. On the 20th of January, DIA will provide us with these other reports. I'm not going to ask them for it, but you never know. The other reports might fly through the door too, in which case I'll share them with you. This sort of information, to me, is vital that we get before a decision to exit is made. And the reason being is that it's all very well to talk about, and we don't know what's going to happen, do we? about whether we harmonise or not, because harmonise means we pay for them, because we're the cheapest. But we don't know what their decision is. But if we're sitting with a live option of Wellington Region on the table, personally I think our negotiating power increases by about 100-fold, as opposed to us being a minority in a W plus T model saying, oh, we don't want to subsidise you. I've got a funny feeling they would love us too. It would be wonderful for their
Okay,
residents.
thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Thank you very much. I'm now going to put the motion. Yes, Councillor
Can I
Blair.
just make just a short comment, just to Mr Holmes. I'm not sure if you realised it, David, but you talked about, you mentioned those going with the Wellington model. I don't know anyone going with the Wellington model around this table.
I said exiting.
No, you said those.
Well, I meant exiting.
Yeah, well, you were referring to, I thought you were referring to a group of us who are in support of the Wellington model. I can guarantee you that in my discussions with these two, none of them, nor myself, are in support of the Wellington model. We believe the community should be consulted on it. That's what we're saying. So I just needed to make that clear.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, that clears up the fact too. The last meeting we were saying that 7 out of 9 weren't in favour of it. So everybody's not in favour of it in actual fact, but some want to consult on it. Okay, I'm going to
I'm
put
not in favour of it until we've made the decision.
Yeah, well, some information.
I understand what you're saying, yeah. Okay, I'm going to put the motion. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Bowyer. You can see the motions there that we agree to not to continue with the Wellington Regional Water Services Model joint arrangement. All those in favour, raise your right hand. 5 against. The motion is carried.
Division.
Division. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. That is the closing of the meeting. We'll now close with our closing karakia.
Kumutu amatu mahi o tene wā, manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou ho, o mātou whānau, au ki te aorangi.
Ora.
Done it.
Right.
Oh, I've done that. We've gone from, on